helplessness is your best friend, savage.
Who remembers the 1994 issue of Green Lantern number 54, where Kyle Rayner finds that his girlfriend, Alex DeWitt, has been brutally murdered and stuffed into a fridge? Okay, well, I've never actually read Green Lantern, but...
Have you got that? She hasn't even read the source material, which she is basing this whole crazy philosophy of her own victimhood on, like usual. That would be a bit like me doing a review of a film that I haven't even watched yet, and basing all my assumptions on that.
Thankfully, Gail Simone did, because she began to see a trend. Simone was sick of seeing superheroines who have either been depowered, raped, or cut up and stuck in the refrigerator.
Have you got that? She's just read somebody else's opinion and has adopted that as her own. You gotta admit, that's pretty lazy even by my standards.
In 1999, she created a startlingly long list of over 90 comics that feature female superheroes who suffered a loss of superpowers, brutal violation, or an untimely gruesome death, most often as a plot point for the male hero to seek revenge or further his heroic journey.
Yet again, she's going to assume that this is a personal attack on her personally, which I personally just consider it to be just people doing stories based on loss, or people coping with loss. Which, basically, sometimes dealing with loss is the most personal story that you can ever have, because loss is something that eventually we'll have to face. Either loss of loved ones, those who we care about, or even... And sometimes it may be tragic, sometimes it may come as an instant, or maybe it's be spread out over a few years. You never quite know over these things, because life and death is unpredictable at the best of times.
She called this reoccurring pattern women in refrigerators, for obvious reasons. Since it was originally created, the list has continued to grow. I'm just going to show you a few examples.
Yes, because, as we all know, your few examples somehow is society's problem. Anyway, I'm going to do a deal. I'm going to try and mention or come up with examples of males being horrifically tortured, killed, and violated in ways that she couldn't even comprehend.
Spider-Man's first love, Gwen Stacy, was thrown off a building by the Green Goblin back in 1973. Despite Spidey swooping in and heroically catching her before she hits the ground, she still died either from whiplash or from shock.
Gwen Stacy isn't a superhero. She is going out with a superhero. That isn't the same. Unless you class as relationships and girl power as a superpower. And the Blue Beetle got his brains blown out by, thinks that Lord... What's his name? I can't quite remember his name. But you know what? He died and he didn't come back. I think there was a plotline involving time travel where the new Blue Beetle saved him, but honestly, I haven't read every single comic book out there.
Unsurprisingly, this seemingly random death of a significant character outraged fans of the series. The writers chose to kill off an important female character for the sole purpose of giving Peter Parker a more complex and interesting story arc.
Yet again, that is a blatant straw man. You don't know why they killed her off. And two, so fucking what? It's called Spider-Man, not Gwen Stacy the comic. The big problem with that is that they killed off Gwen Stacy. You don't have to read Spider-Man. You can go... Why don't you just go create your own female characters and promote them? I guarantee you it would be quite popular. Only if people can laugh at it, how badly written or how badly drawn it is. Because, as we all know, you somehow have created talents beyond even the world's comprehension. Because you're a feminist, and feminists seem to know everything there is to know about reality.
In the Batman universe, Stephanie Brown, who's played many characters such as the Spoiler, a female Robin, and also Batgirl, was gruesomely tortured to death with a power drill by Batman's enemy, the Black Mask.
I think her death was undone later on, I think like 2 years later. But anyway, Burt Allen was horribly beaten to death. I think the second Robin was horribly beaten to death by the Joker, and I think people could vote on whether or not he could live or die in Death in the Family. So what? You don't like it when females are tortured, but it's okay if males are beaten horribly to death with a crowbar and left into a warehouse so they can be blown up. You're childish at best.
The highly sexualized images of Brown being tortured spanned across multiple issues. Some fans were so outraged by this fridging of Batgirl that they refer to this as torture porn. Another strong female superhero who met an untimely and trivial death was Big Barda. She was the leader of the Female Furies and also a member of Birds of Prey and the Justice League. She was married to Mr. Miracle, and interestingly, she was actually physically stronger than her superhero husband. Although Big Barda had all of these superpowers, she was killed in her kitchen with no sign of a real battle.
So let me get this right. You don't like it when female characters are horribly killed over, horribly tortured to death over multiple issues, but yet you don't like it if a female character is somehow killed off panel without a struggle. You really need to sort your priorities out. That's stupid beyond any measure. So you want them to use the right level of violence towards women. You're a fucking idiot. Anyway, Spider-Man died. You know, he took a bullet for Captain America and then died in the Ultimate Universe. So what is your big point? If you don't like how characters are dealt with, go and make your own characters and promote your own comic book series. They're not that hard to make. I could go onto DeviantArt or Storm Artist and find at least 100 webcomics. Heck, Christian Westland Chandler has his own comic book series, and that guy is autistic and has emotional problems, so I don't see what physical force is stopping you.
And of course, her death conveniently created a narrative for her husband. He struggled with whether or not to use the anti-life equation, which would allow him to control the willpower of all sentient beings. Big Barda is just one of many female characters whose random and meaningless death was constructed in order to create a more intricate storyline for a male hero.
Yeah, again, that's a blatant straw man. You have no idea why they killed Big Barda off. They could have done that, or it could have been that they didn't like writing her, or maybe the sales were flagging, so they thought they would just kill off a dying property.
Comic books can be a little bit difficult to follow since characters are killed and then brought back to life, or there's multiple canons in different books for the same characters. So this doesn't hold true across the board, but it certainly happens a lot.
You are made of stupid.
Women in Refrigerators is one way of making sense of this incredibly complex world by pulling out overarching patterns of the way women are treated in comic books. When Simone released her list in 1999, there was an instant backlash from some comic book fans who thought it was unfair that they were singling out female characters.
Yes, it fucking is. It's confirmation bias. If you don't know what that is, I suggest just watching a few of your videos. They're full of confirmation bias.
This criticism happens whenever we point out tropes specifically about women. In this case, comic book fans criticized women in Refrigerators by saying that male heroes get killed and tortured too, so what's the big deal?
Yes, that's what I mean. Anita Sarkeesian only focuses on women because she's sexist. And before anybody accuse me, yes, women can be sexist too, the same way that women can be perverted, or women can be sick and neurotic, or women can be stupid, so on and so forth. If you don't like it, suggest you do something about it rather than just sitting at home and complaining on the internet about how sucky the world is. Why didn't she just go out there and create her own goddamn fucking female characters? Like I've been saying for the last few videos about her. She is just lazy and stupid, and nobody should be paying attention to her. They should be paying attention to me, because I'm such a wise and noble and charismatic person.
The people who run the Women in Refrigerators website responded to this by creating another trope. How much do I love fans? Called Dead Men Defrosting. Comic fan John Bartle explains, in cases where male heroes have been altered or appear to die, they usually come back even better than before, either power-wise or in terms of character development relevancy to the reader. Many popular superheroes fit neatly into the Dead Men Defrosting trope, such as Superman, Hal Jordan as Green Lantern, Barry Allen as the Flash, Spider-Man, Captain America, the Hulk, Nick Fury, etc., etc. A classic example of this difference applies even when characters are depowered. When Barbara Gordon as Batgirl was shot in the spine by the Joker as a way to drive her father, Commissioner Gordon, insane, she was permanently paralyzed and had to create an entirely new identity for herself.
The Killing Joke, which was written by Alan Moore, who also wrote Watchmen and V for Vendetta, I actually know I own all three of those. Batgirl, or Barbara Gordon, actually came back as the Oracle, which is more interesting, more useful, and generally more better character than she ever was as Batgirl. And if she doesn't like that, what I just said, she can go shove it up her ass for all I care. Well, last time I checked, they completely undid the Killing Joke when they had that big relaunch a few years back, but I don't know, I don't read every single issue that DC ever puts out. I only tend to read the big major comic books, the bigger event comics.
But when Batman's back was broken over supervillain Bane's knee, he fully recovered.
Wait, what? Oh, God! Oh, my back just snapped like a pack of uncooked spaghetti! Oh, you just walk up and break my back without saying a word! Oh, boo! Boo on you, sir!
Simone responds to this criticism by saying, first, there's always been a larger selection of male characters, so a handful killed made barely a ripple.
You got that? She doesn't care or doesn't matter when males die, so it's male disposability, which is a rather sexist and stupid thing to say, you sexist bitch. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Second, they didn't seem to be killed in the same way. They tended to die heroically, to go down fighting.
Bullshit! The second Robin got beaten to death by the Joker, thrown into a warehouse, and then got blown up. That isn't heroic. The second Blue Beetle got a bullet to the head from point blank range. That isn't heroic. This is a blatant straw man, and she is full of shit right now. And second of all, the pre-crisis Supergirl got killed while fighting the Anti-Monitor, which is probably one of the most iconic covers ever to grace comic books as a whole.
Whereas in many cases, the super ladies were simply found on the kitchen table already carved up. The writers of these comics treat similar narrative situations very differently based on the character's gender.
Oh no, they're treating characters differently based purely on their gender. Whatever shall we do? Why don't you just stop reading the fucking comic books, you moron?
And it seems to be faring much worse for the women. While the women in refrigerators trope originated in the comic book genre, it can be applied across other pop culture mediums such as video games, TV shows, and movies. For example, Libby and Shannon on Lost were murdered specifically to push the story arc of two male characters. Or how about all these women from Heroes who were depicted as either losing or being unable to control their power?
A big wooden cross. So every time you feel unappreciated for all your sacrifices, you can climb on up and nail yourself to it.
In video games such as God of War 1, Splinter Cell, and Fable 2...
Okay, the only one that I can truly criticize is God of War, because that's the only one out of the three that she's mentioned that I've actually played and know about. And for me, the story is more about how a person was used by those who have more power and being almost like a pawn or disposable piece, rather than a male trying to get back at how his wife was killed. In fact, if I recall, his wife and his daughter were both killed by his own fucking hands, and then his ashes were spread all over his body as account for his sins.
The narrative revolves around a man seeking revenge for the death of female family members. And there are plenty more examples. Writers are using the women in refrigerators trope to literally trade a female character's life for the benefit of a male character's story arc.
That's a blatant straw man. You have no idea what the writers are doing, and some writers are actually female, and some stories do revolve around females, you know. Or do you only prove it's stories that reinforce the notion that all women are victims, all men are victimizers?
They're making clear that women, even powerful female superheroes, are basically disposable. It's important to remember that these comics don't exist in a vacuum, that they're created by artists and writers who live in the same sexist social systems that we all do.
A big wooden cross. So every time you feel unappreciated for all your sacrifices, you can climb on up and nail yourself to it.
And that's reflected in the characters and the stories. It's saddening to see how flippantly and trivially violence against women is treated in comic book pages, even with the most powerful of female superheroes, especially when violence against women in the real world are at epidemic levels.
Fuck you! Domestic violence is actually down for the last previous years. In fact, domestic violence against men is just as high. You stupid fucking moron! How can you say something blatantly stupid when there is blatant fucking evidence? You fucking hypocrite. You have no choice. You have no interest in helping anybody other than your fucking self, you fucking piece of shit, moron, asshole, dickhead, piece of shit. In fact, I would take that back. A piece of shit feels insulted being compared to you.
We have to remember that the Women in Refrigerators list was created for us to identify, understand, and resist the variety of ways that women and our fictional representations are disempowered and victimized.
I honestly just think it's just you lot wallowing your own victimhood and saying woe is me, rather than doing something that will actually change the world, like promoting and building your own comic books rather than controlling content that you don't approve of.
I'm not saying women can't ever die in comic books.
Yes, you blatantly fucking are.
But it matters how and why they die. So comic book, TV and movie writers, and video game producers, stop relying on stereotypical tropes. Stop using violence against women